everybody, and welcome back to the IzzyVerse. My name is Izzy. Welcome to the show. We have a lot to cover this day and a lot of stuff going on this week. So I'm going to try to be as brief as I possibly can. As you already saw, I have my guest who's waiting in the lobby right there, Jonathan Marks Barravecchia. Right, some of you might know him as Jonathan Marks. He's going to be talking with us a little bit about his artwork and his style and what other stuff he's working on. Also, I'm very pleased to announce that this coming Wednesday, I will be joining Rags Morales. He's my special guest, and we'll be talking about Identity Crisis, the first of its kind. It's going to be the first video of its kind. And I'm joining with me will be Achilles Yandel, a good old friend of mine. And we're going to be chatting with Rags, talking about Identity Crisis, all the cool things that happen about it. And we'll have some more stuff to talk about it on the Wednesday. So be on the lookout for that one. And of course, Free Comic Book Day, man. It is Free Comic Book Day, May 7th. There's a lot going on. There's some stuff I could tell you. There's some stuff I can't tell you. But I will tell you, I am going to be on not one, but plenty comic book shops. And I might be somewhere else to end the day. So be on the lookout for that one. With that said, I'm going to introduce to everybody my guest of this evening. He has done work for Marvel under Doctor Strange. He's done Doctor Strange. He's done Scarlet Witch. He's done Savage Wolverine, ManThing, Dark Tower. He's also has some books with Valiant Entertainment, Shadow Man, Harbinger, and some of his own creator-owned work, as well as independent titles, Fever Dreams, Mariner, and Ancient Rome, The Ivory King, and Punch. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce to you Jonathan Marks Barravecchia. Did I get it? Did I get it?
Close. It's close.
I do my best.
Yeah.
How's it going, Jonathan?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. We were talking beforehand. I've been excited to chat with you.
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. We met in Brooklyn in the St. Mark's Comic Con that we did, where I immediately, when I saw your stuff, I immediately said, "Oh, I need to get me a sketchbook." So I got my sketchbook, and trust me, for me to get sketchbooks, that's a big deal because that's all I get when I go to a Comic Con. I don't buy comics. I don't buy other stuff. I buy sketchbooks, and I absolutely fell in love with that sketchbook. But before we start talking about some of the work that's actually in that sketchbook, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about how you got into comics in the first place. So, what drew you in about comic books, and why are you doing the business now?
Man, I still have the first comic book that I ever bought, and I honestly I think my dad read comic books a little bit growing when he was a kid, but it's not something that he and I talked about or anything like that. But I remember vividly seeing my grandmother one summer, and next to her house there was a shop. And the shop, I swear, every year was a different thing. Like nothing could stay there. It was always turning over. But one year was a comic shop, and I went in, and I don't think I knew anything about comics, but I remember the feeling of I know exactly what I'm looking for. And I got a Paul Smith reprint of a classic X-Men. And they had the trading cards, the Marvel trading cards.
Yeah.
The individual ones, I was flipping through them, and I got one that was Beast. I can't remember what series it was.
Which series it was, right?
I can still picture it was he's jumping over a roof or something. But yeah, I don't know, man. It always spoke to me, and then from then on, I always drew pictures of monsters and dinosaurs. And now, when I started getting into comic books and comic book characters and superheroes, and it just, I sort of joke, it's just something that I never grew out of. It for whatever reason it spoke to me and still does.
Yeah. What is that first book? In fact,
I wish I brought it out. It's a classic X-Men. It's Claremont and Paul Smith. It's one of the ones in the Morlock tunnels where Callisto has Angel strapped up and
I know which book you're talking about. I have that book.
Yeah. I still have it. It's in one of my boxes.
Yeah, I know exactly which book it is. I can't tell you the number either, but I know exactly. It was the book that they ripped off his wings.
Yeah. She clips his wings. Yeah.
I remember that book, and that cover is amazing. It's
incredible. Yeah.
It's just him with hands up. You see the wings all out in their glory.
Peered through. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great cover.
Incredible. Yeah. So
So what's the overall condition of the book?
Not good, but it's in a bag. It's in a bag of board now. Honestly, I was even thinking of framing it and like putting it up. You
Yeah.
know.
I have a similar book. I've told this to some of my guests before. I have a Marvel's Tales book. It's a Spider-Man Thor,
Yeah.
Chris Claremont, John Byrne book. It's a reprint as well.
Nice.
Um, and it has a Spider Ham story behind it. So, but that's my first, and it looks like garbage,
Yeah.
dude. But it is the first, and it is like your first dollar, right? And when
Yeah.
so it has meaning, So it has nothing to do with value, right? It's not like you're gonna go and get it graded because you'll get it graded at a 0.5 or ungradable rating or something
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. It means something to me. Like it doesn't. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm funny with comics, man, because I still bag and board most of the books,
Mhm.
but I'm not planning on selling them. I'm not planning. Like I don't really care about the grading or the CGC stuff. It's just like a habit. Like I still want to keep them nice, but I don't know. Like just for me, you know.
No, yeah, I'm with you on that. I have all my comics boarded. I have to just I want to preserve them in some way or fact. But I'm with you. I'm not. There is no plan of selling, none
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Um, there's no plan of selling. There was a time when I was low on funds and I did sell some of my books.
Mm.
I got a good amount of money off of them too, so I was happy about that. But I was feeling it when it was over. Like, I
Yeah.
just gave
Yeah.
away that. You know what I mean? It's like that feeling you get. Like, how could you?
Yeah.
There wa-
It's like betrayal.
yeah, exactly. Like, how dare you? It's like the book is telling you, how dare you do this to me? Um, so fortunately, I don't have to do that right now anymore. But
Yeah.
I still, being that I started this channel, I started collecting books again. And I'm having fun with a lot of the books. There are things about the industry that I don't like moving forward, but there's a lot of things about the industry that I still love. I still love the art. I still love storytelling. I think marketing is what is a bigger problem, personally speaking. But besides that, we could talk about that all day. But that's not what this is about. This is about us talking about your art, and what you've done. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few things and talk a little bit more about them. Specifically, let's start with the
Oh, yeah.
beginnings. Some of the Harbinger and the Shadow Man, in
Yeah.
particular. We have these two valiant books. Um, I see, obviously, with Shadow Man, you totally see it. It is all there. It is the thing.
Yeah.
So talk to
Yeah. I
me a
mean,
little
that
bit
was
about these
the timing.
two.
That was exactly what they wanted. So the Shadow Man, like these are both recent. The Harbinger came out just a week or two ago,
Hmm.
and it's I can't I only did the cover, so I can't actually remember who's the artist on the inside. But the
Yeah.
Shadow Man, they were like, we're doing an homage to. There was a couple of them in a row of classic horror movies. We're doing an homage to The Thing, and I did a couple of sketches that were like a little deviation from the Drew Struzan, but
Mhm.
ultimately they're like, nah, man, like it's gotta be the classic. So that was
Yeah.
super fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I want to talk a little bit more, but I want to talk a little bit about the style, what you've done.
Mhm.
So here's obviously it's a saber tooth book, is it, or it's a Wolverine book? But
It's I can't remember now. I think this is a Sabretooth book. This was one of the tie-ins, I think, after
yeah.
the death of Wolverine.
Hmm.
There was a mini that followed certain other characters and like their reaction to Wolverine's death, and I
Hmm.
think this was the Sabretooth one. I
Yeah.
remember Kyle Higgins wrote it.
Yeah.
Um, but this book and then The Dark Tower, which I don't know if you have images from that too, but those two books were the ones where I was comfortable and the editors were like gracious enough to let me start
Hmm.
experimenting with different media.
Yeah.
So collage and paint. This is oil and uh, I can't remember what else. Oil and ink on this.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then moving into the Dark Tower is more some pages are completely painted in watercolor and ink and oil.
Yeah, because I wanted to just dive into the art
Yeah.
itself, because as I mentioned in the promos, this is art. This is just straight up fine art, right? That's how I look at this. And just looking at the workmanship that takes place here, this is not your traditional comic, right? This is not your traditional style. There's nothing wrong with the traditional style. There's nothing wrong with, taking fine art and turning it into comics. But I want to talk a little bit about your influences and what were your influences. So let's start talking about that.
Yeah.
Let me remove that so we can start, focusing our attention on your influence. Who influenced you, and why did you go towards that route?
I have, I mean, you can see some of my influences, I think, obviously, you know, guys like Sienkiewicz and Kent Williams and, Dave McKean, painters. And then outside of comic books, Klimt and Chile, Renaissance Italian masters, stuff like that. But when I first started doing comic books, my style that I was trying to still figure out was much more what you would consider like a I guess a stereotypical like
Yeah.
superhero style.
Mhm.
And I actually found that I was trying to ape some of the other artists that were putting out books at the moment. And there were artists like we were talking before we went live, like the
Mhm.
guys that I grew up with and still love, the Kubert brothers and Jim Lee, all the Image guys, like I still love that look of like this is what a comic book or what a superhero comic book looks like.
Mhm.
But as I started making more comics, I sort of realized that this is not a style that comes naturally to me. It was me trying to make a comic book that looks like how I think a comic book should look.
Mhm.
And once again, like on the Dark Tower and on that Sabretooth book, once I started sort of embracing that I can take it in a different direction. And again, the editors were fine with me doing that, and I could sort of embrace the painters and I mean, I guess fine artists or artists with a capital A, who've influenced me. My style and my work started becoming so much more natural and so much more expressive. And I always say it's more honest.
Mhm.
It's still superheroes or horror or sci-fi or fantasy or whatever it is, but the art itself, like the line work, is more honest. It's more, it's easier and more open for me to work this way with the paints and with the less drawing or less underdrawing and more just directly into the art.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think that's good. I spoke a few weeks ago. I spoke with Baldassar. Completely different style, right?
Oh, yeah,
But his is more of a cartoony style, and very similar. He had a conversation with Bob Harris in which Bob Harris told him, "Hey, you know what? Don't try to copy what other people are doing. Do what you think works best for you. Do you like, in other words, you be you
yeah,
rather than you try to be Jim Lee. You try to be, this guy or the Kubert brothers, right? They have their thing. They're doing their thing. And yes, a lot of their stuff comes from the guys that came before them, right? When you look at a Tom McFarlane, you see Michael Golden in his artwork, right? You see that kind of stuff. When you look at some other guys, when you see a Ryan Stegman, you see an Art Adams, right? Stuff like that. But at the same time, they made it their own. And think one of the things you did, where what I've noticed is that you've taken all of these styles and kind of mashed them into your style, right? Where we see the Sienkiewicz, we see the Dan McKean influence is all there, right?
yeah,
The Ken Williams, as you said. Um, all these guys are again traditional painters in the comic book world. So, and said Kenvich is a perfect example. When you go back to his stuff with the New Mutants and Moon Knight, you're like like the interiors are nice. Don't get me wrong, the interiors are nice, but when you get those covers, you're just
yeah.
blown away by those covers.
Ooh.
Because it's like you see he's taking extra liberties to make a cover stand out, and more importantly, very different from the comic that's right next to it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that was actually important to me. Like as much as I love comic books, like I wanted my work to stand out, to not look like all the other books that are on the shelves.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, it's a business too, so like if I had a book that looked like everything else, I may work more. But it's
But at the same time, you then gets lost in the shelf, wouldn't you?
exactly, yeah.
And there's books out there that, and I've talked to plenty of people about this, that I see there's a lot of house style going on, especially
Yeah,
today, and it becomes difficult for an artist to be recognized, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I think an artist needs their job, their work, and you do your paycheck, right? But you get your paycheck for it. But you get a little extra when you're recognized.
Yeah, yeah,
You get that extra state of liberty. So, I'm sure that was the case back in the day with, Kirby, for example. He stood out from everybody, right? Because he was different, because he decided to be more, he had more creative freedoms than the other guys. Kurt Swan, Steranko, the late great Neil Adams, who just
yeah,
recently passed
yeah,
away. Where when you look at Neil Adams' work today, it still holds as a book that could come out today,
for sure.
right?
And he's
Um,
still influencing people today.
yeah, and
Like
I
all
think he'll
those are.
influence people even more now, because his style. You see, Brian Hitch has taken a lot of Neil
Mhm.
Adams style in his style, because it was real, but it was still superhero
Yeah, yeah.
cartoon, right? So there's another one. Let's go ahead and show another book, because again, your artwork is so amazing that I have to show it off.
Oh yeah,
This is a piece from Scarlet Witch, right?
yeah.
So you have the liberty of working with Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch on the week that Doctor
I
Strange
know.
Multiverse of Madness is coming out.
The books, hey.
That was the reason why I made the title Doctor Strange and Scarlet
Yeah,
Witch art.
yeah, 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 yeah. Smart.
Tell me what it was like doing Scarlet Witch in particular.
This was super fun too. It was like a rotating cast of different artists, following one story through like alternate dimensions. So again, I was, they're books that fit the kind of work that I do, and I was able to push, collage. You mentioned Steranko earlier, like Steranko influences the collage, the painting, mixed media stuff here.
Mhm. Now, with the work I see here, I see there's the traditional black and whites,
Mm,
right? Obviously, I see the ink wash,
mm.
and especially with the first few panels. But then we get this little hint of color. Is that a colors, or is that you doing that work?
No, that's me, but that's uh, photograph. So
Mm.
that's a collage with different photographs and pieces of old comic books, pieces of old magazines. Um, yeah, this I actually don't. I did not color this book, but I can't remember who did.
Mhm.
But this is the original scan that I sent you. That all the color there is from the different papers that are collaged onto the board.
Mhm. So tell me what it's like doing with the process of, you have your script, you're given the what you need to do with the script,
Mhm.
and then you build from there. So how do you take this process, where traditionally a person will pencil the work and then most likely pass it along to an ink, or they'll do it digitally and things like that, but in your case is a little different, where you're still doing the layouts. How loose are you with your layouts?
I thumbnail everything, especially if I'm working for a big company. So I'll thumbnail the whole book to send it off to editorial so that they can approve it. And the thumbnails are pretty legible because someone else has to see it, and that's where I figure out that's the hardest part. Like that's the most work, is figuring out the script, reading through, and I'll read through this. I'll print it out. I'll read it through. I'll highlight. I'll do little sketches in the margin. Then I'll do a sheet of thumbnails to send to editorial. Once that's approved, though, then the board itself, and I work larger than a lot of artists do, 11 by 16.
Yeah.
I work bigger than that, so I really just block things in. I use. Let's see if I have it right here. Just a colored pencil. It's usually red or blue. I used to use the non-repro blue, but I can't find those anymore. So this is
Yeah.
just one of the color erase.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll block in pretty vague shapes because I'll refer to my thumbnails, and I'll also have shot photographs for reference if I need it. So I'll have a pretty abstract shape to indicate here's a head, here's the arm. It's almost like when you learn to draw
Mhm.
and you've got sort of the sketchy little skeleton. The ball is the head, the line is the spine, and then like
Mhm.
the arms come up. That's pretty much all I'll do in my penciling stage, and then I go straight in with ink. And that's what I was saying earlier, like that's where my idea of the honest line comes in.
Mhm.
it's not the most accurate way to work. If I used to uh, pencil everything tightly and then light box onto the board, and then basically pencil again or ink on top of that. But everything is exactly where I want it to be already. It's planned out and it's precise. Rather than working that way now, it's very loose, where I know the idea of where things are going to be, and then straight in with ink. And rather than it be the photorealistic, if I'm drawing the hand, the line is here, 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 here. It's the line's here, here, and now it goes, oh, it's not quite right, but it's still, it's the honest representation of how I see, or how I've constructed the image, rather than a more labored but accurate way to work. And that's important to me. There's another artist who is a big influence, George Pratt, who's another comic book guy and a fine artist and an illustrator and an educator. And he talks about, he was the first one that I heard use that description of the honest quality of a line, and that's something that is important to me now. So very long-winded, fairly tight thumbnails to get approved, very vague pencils, and then straight in with ink.
Now, do you use rulers or anything like that?
Not, almost never.
No, yeah, and the reason why I asked is that I recall Kelly Jones once saying that he likes the honest line, right? He likes drawing his lines so that they're not exactly perfect.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because it's not an exactly perfect world.
Yeah.
Right. And of course I definitely see some Kelly Jones as well in there. I know we talked a little bit about that. But it's amazing to see a book, and again, Scarlet Witch as well as Doctor Strange, they blend into the environment that you've created in your work, like your universe, your multiverse, as since we're keeping with that theme this week in particular. So let's go into some more creator stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And that means I have to click my screen to get there. Fever Dreams and The Mariner. Now, this is not The Submariner, not to be confused by The Submariner, but these are two books that you worked with Michael Dean on, right?
Yeah. Michael was a friend of mine I used to live in California, and we were friends, or we met out there and became friends. And he's a writer and a comic book fan. And so we just decided to, we wanted to make something. We Fever Dreams was the first. It's a what's the word? It's a bunch of small stories.
Anthology.
Thank you, idiot.
Yes.
An anthology. So half of them are written by him, and half of them are written by me, and all the art is by me. So we just did that one ourselves, printed out, I don't know how many, sold them, and had enough success that we were like, excited to try something bigger. And so we moved on to doing Mariner, which we did was a Kickstarter book. So we got crowdfunded and made and published or self-published and printed ourselves.
Now, with both books, since you guys are doing all the work, you're literally doing everything, right? So where Michael's writing, you are producing the art, you are producing the colors, you are producing the lettering, right?
Michael lettered Mariner. So he for Mariner kind of broke down the idea, almost outlined a detailed outline of the story. And then we went through basically page by page and broke down what works, what doesn't work visually. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then I painted everything, got it to him. He lettered it. And then, we did all the design work. I did the title treatment, and sort of made the book, and just, we had to present to our printer, like, this is exactly how we want it to look. So all the story, art, lettering, design was all us.
And what's the story? You mentioned what's the story about Fever Dreams? What's the story for The Mariner?
So Mariner is sort of a thematic sequel to the Samuel Taylor Coleridge poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
Mhm.
So the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, if I don't know, a lot of people have studied it probably like way back when in high school and you forgot or you never heard of it. But
No,
it's
it wasn't in my high school.
yeah, yeah. It's like it's an epic poem or a lyrical poem technically that always stuck with me and Michael as well. Like he remembered it very well. So briefly, the original poem is an old man goes to a wedding, or sorry, excuse me, a young man goes to a wedding. He's pulled aside by an old man. The old man says, "Oh, I used to be young. I was a mariner. I used to work on ships. Let me tell you this story." The story is that I was young. I was out on a ship. Everything was going great. I shot an albatross with a crossbow for no real reason, and because of that, the ship is becalmed. They're stuck at sea. He starts either hallucinating or the world starts changing. He sees death and the angels come and they play dice for them for souls and all this stuff. And the poem, the original poem, ends with the mariner saying like, now I have to walk the earth and tell people this story. Be careful with the actions. Your actions have consequences. So our mariner is just, like I said, thematically is an extension of that. It explores the idea of action and consequence, of choice and regret. It follows the mariner from the original poem as he interacts with different people across different timelines. And there's a young character who's trying to figure out the world. There's a character, like a modern character, who's uncomfortable making decisions because of the fear of making the wrong decision. There's sort of an arrogant he's a lounge singer basically from the 20s who's incapable of recognizing that he could have made a bad decision. There's a woman in the 80s who feels as if she has been boxed in by other people making decisions for her. And it all ties in. They all interact with the mariner. They end up on the same ghost ship. The albatross comes back. It's more stray toasters than it is Submariner, I would say. It's more dealing with the ideas and themes and sort of a not meandering but a disparate story. It breaks apart and then comes together again at the end. I'm very happy with this too.
It looks great. I was seeing the pages that you sent me, and I absolutely thought they were gorgeous.
Thank you.
Again, your work to me is phenomenal, man. You
Thank
know
you.
what I mean? And I have nothing but praises to share for you.
Right.
Um, Talk a little bit about the Ivory King Cree. As I'm looking at J.T. Crow, who wrote the book, right? Famous
Yeah,
writer.
yeah,
He's definitely a popular writer in the comic book world. And talk to me a little bit about this particular illustration you did
yeah.
for this novel.
JT and I, again, a friend of mine from California, we hit it off. We met actually. One of the first books I did that I didn't send you, I did some books with Aspen Comics, and that's where
Yes,
JT and
shrugged, right?
I did, yeah, shrugged. And JT and I met there, and like I said, he's a super nice guy. We hit it off, and we wanted to do something together. So this is an illustrated novel. It's got, I think, 12 black and white interior illustrations, and then a painted cover and back cover. It's anthropomorphic sword and sorcery fantasy. So it follows Bixel, who's our protagonist. He's a blacksmith's apprentice, and he's a badger. Something happens during a celebration in the kingdom where the king, the elephant in the background there, is attacked and we're not sure if he's going to live or die. He's sort of in between. And so Bixel goes on a quest to try to save the king, to try to save the kingdom. And during the journey and his ultimate return has to reckon with the idea of what do you sacrifice to keep safe your home? What does the idea of home really mean? Like, what does that give to you, and what does that take from you? And what do you need, within yourself to be confident in that environment?
And I did see the pictures, so let me see if I could grab them quickly, because we could see the pictures of the characters. Because I know you did send me a few of them.
I think there's
Yeah,
this was super fun. This all stemmed where you find them from JT and I having a lunch together and trying to figure like, what should we do? Should we do a comic book? Should we do a book? You know, blah blah blah. We talked about this when the book was coming out. Basically, he was flipping through my sketchbook, and there was one piece in there that was just a giant tortoise, and growing out of the tortoise was a city, like castles and stuff like that. And it was like, oh, what is this? I was like, I don't know. It's just, there's the old mythology of the turtle holding the world and all of that kind of stuff. And well, let's do a book like that. I was like, yeah, I would love to do a book like that. He went off and came up with this whole thing. Yeah, so that's on the left is Bixel. That's the protagonist. That's the blacksmith's apprentice, and then on the right is the antagonist. That's sort of our big bad, who's an ancient crocodile who's been around for thousands of years and is trying to slowly take over some of the kingdoms in that world.
Now I'm noticing the mixed media. Obviously, I see the collaging going on, but in particular with the first one, the chainmail. Is that a photograph of chainmail, or was that actually drawn?
That's all drawn. So there's no collage in either of these. This is all drawn.
That's a lot of work there.
Yeah, the book is black and white, so it's all pen and brush, not the nibs that I usually use, like the dip pens. This is all like microns and fine liners, and the chainmail was fun. Like once you get into the groove, it's kind of fun, but it's crazy to think about.
How long did that take?
I don't know. A long time. Yeah.
Because it's so detailed with the chainmail that it almost looked real. I don't know if the screen is showing off how realistic that chainmail really does look. From the image I'm seeing here, it's like there's these highlights that you have in it that it was very clear that you took your time with this chainmail to get it right. So I could, I definitely a little jealous in a good way.
I think I was cross-eyed by the time that page was done. Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's go back to talking a little bit more, because you have another book that recently came out, and that's Punched.
Yeah. So Punch Volume 1 came out, I guess last year. It shipped. And this is another creator-owned one. Alan Amato is the writer. He's a writer and a photographer. And Punch 1 came out last year, and Punch Volume 2, the second half, I actually just finished at the start of the year. And that should be available, I think, at the end of 2022.
Awesome. And you're going to be kickstarting it, I take it?
No, it's all done. We got the funding for it already.
It's fully
funded? Yeah. Funded, finished, funded, painted. It's with the letterer now, and off to the printers soon. So it'll be, all this stuff is, except for Fever Dreams, which is all sold out, is on my website. So whenever Punch 2 is done, I'll have it there, and then I'll start having it at shows and stuff like that too.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about the story of Punch.
Punch is more horror, like end of days kind of story. It's follows a fallen priest, and we don't know much about him, but it starts, the story starts with, in the aftermath of an act of violence, the priest is drinking in the desert alone. He stumbles across this bar. In the bar is this is not really a spoiler, but you figure out as the story goes on the 7 deadly sins as women who work or patronize the bar. And so it's the priest sort of figuring out what's going on there, like what brought him there, what do the sins want from him. I don't want to spoil too much. It all ties. The whole story, like I said, takes place after the end of the world. So end of days. How's he dealing with sort of what comes next, and what comes next, like in general, like with the gods and the angels and the demons and the devils and all these sort of mythologies and religious histories
Mhm.
sort of coming together.
Yeah. So
You know.
it's like a post apocalyptic story. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Well, just maybe just one post because there's still people. There's at least
Right.
a priest.
Yeah. It again. I love your take on color
Oh,
to bring out the pages where when I look at that second image, obviously you see it in the first one too, but when you look at the second image with the three panels on top, the three panels on the bottom with the six panel grid, it you specifically put the colors, the yellows and the reds in certain spots on purpose.
mhm.
Um, what was your thinking behind that?
The actually for so the page on the right there is from Mariner, and we had actually established that certain colors and certain temperatures and then certain specific colors were going to indicate certain things.
Mhm,
So there is actually a reason, like, the red, it's not like super clever. The red is more aggression and violence, and the yellow is more sort of calming, uh, like a soothing or a character that's trying to be kind. Um, and so, the way that I set this page up with that symmetry was like, yeah, it was very intentional.
mm,
The You can sort of see too the way on that page, and the way that I work most of the time, I'll tape off my borders. Literally I use masking tape.
mhm,
So when I paint over it, some of the red and some of the yellow kind of can bleed into each
mhm,
other. And then when I remove the tape, there's a clean line. So you can see, here the different moods are blending into each other while the different characters are trying to sort of like stay strong within their own, the things that are important to them. Um, I appreciate that you complimented the color, though. I have a friend and a teacher and a fine artist who criticized, gave me critique, which I asked for, which I invited, that my
mhm,
drawing is still better than my painting. And
mhm,
so when I'm painting, part of that's always in the back of my head to like prove him wrong, or,
mhm.
or to improve, to make sure that I'm pushing that and trying to work on that stuff.
But it's intentional, right? So
Yeah,
it's not like you decide to color these images in the sense that you want it you just color for the sake of coloring, right?
right,
It's not like you're a kid and you decide that this character is going to be blue when he should be green.
right.
But at the same time your colors have meaning behind it, right? and
Yeah.
and I think that's commendable in thinking as an artist, right? Where you using color to demonstrate a mood, to demonstrate an emotion, um and that is good. That is what we want. That's what a lot of things about art in particular, especially when it comes to comics, when you read comic books, in particular, you don't always see what the artist was intended to
Mhm.
see, because you're just reading a knock 'em drag 'em fist fight pretty much, right? But you don't see how they might have changed a hairstyle or a cheekbone on a character.
Yeah.
um Again, we're going to talk about identity crisis on Wednesday, so I don't want to give up too much. But there was, when Rags was drawing um Elongated Man, there was moments that he couldn't hold his face because of the emotions he was going, and that was done intentionally. Or where he got mad, he stiffened up,
Yeah.
and that was done intentionally. And the same thing could be done with colors in particular. I think colors, when used appropriately, are a powerful tool for art in particular.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's all about, like you said, it's uh, uh, sort of inviting or extending that story, like moving that story forward, and having a mood, having like an atmosphere that sort of pushes the narrative as well,
Hmm.
subtly, because you may or may not notice it, but
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
there.
So let's go to some of the other works we have here. All right. I saw the Man-Thing piece and I was like, this is cool. I love this mag piece. Tell me a little
I
bit about Tell me more about when you were doing ManThing for a little bit. I believe there was a cover for ManThing, or
This was actually just they never used it. It was a
okay.
covered pitch,
Mm-hmm.
but I did a story in one of the more recent series of ManThing that R.L. Stine was writing, which was kind of cool. I was a Goosebumps fan when I was a little kid, so um, this was sort of the pitch for myself, basically, to get on the book. I love ManThing. I love Swamp Thing. I love gross monster swamp creatures. Like, you can probably tell from my work, I don't draw a ton of like cities and buildings and like parallel lines
Yeah.
and parallel lines.
Perspective, right? At the pain in the butt.
It's hard. Like, I understand it enough to fake it. I think so. I can work that way, but I'm much more comfortable doing the organic stuff. I think most artists are. Some artists are just
it's a there are a few guys out there that perspective wise, their perspectives on point and things like that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, no one's really looking at the building behind it, right? Everybody's looking at the character in front of it.
If the building behind it is wrong, then you notice it. Like that's
when it's really wrong.
If it's really wrong, then you'll notice it. If the perspective is off, then even if you don't understand why it's off, like, it'll pull you out of the story and you'll notice it.
Definitely.
So
but then there's moments where it's just it's, I don't know if it's done intentional, but it's gone to the point that it's so bad it's good type of thing.
Yeah.
I always go back to Rob Liefeld. I'm not gonna say I'm not a fan, because I was like everyone else when New Mutants X-Force came out. I was eating it up. All right. And but he sold it. He went, all right, this is what you want. I'm gonna go. And you know what? He named his studios Extreme Studios, and he exactly did that. He went extreme.
It's easy to make fun of that art. Like, some of it's not the best, technically, some of it, but man, it's like it is all of us. And it was such a different extreme style. It was like, man, this is awesome. Especially when you're, it's 90s comics.
It's 90s comics, exactly. It's just going, balls to the wall pretty much approach, right? It's like Rob Liefeld took advantage of that opportunity, and more power to him. Some people don't like it, but you have the right to not like it, but you have the right to like it too. He did something. He wasn't what some people will say is a hack. He wasn't a hack. I would never call him that.
No, not at all. No.
But he was just he took advantage of something, and for a very, very long time banked on it, as we say.
Man. He's still doing books, comics, and he's got movies with characters.
He's like an ultimate fanboy sometimes. He talks like a fanboy. So he really does. Right. Let's take a look at some more pictures that you sent me, which I look at the picture of the angels and it reminds me of when I was in college and I had an assignment to draw the Pieta.
Yeah.
I had an assignment to draw the Pieta, and I ended up using charcoal pencils. That was the medium I was using, charcoal pen. And this brings me to that. That's not mine. So yeah, the charcoal pencil. Both of these pieces really stand out. Thank you for sending them out to me. Talk to me a little bit about the two pieces. Let's first start with the piece on the left.
So this is from an illustrated edition of The Haunting of Hill House, which is coming out through Easton Press this year. Actually, don't have the dates yet. So this is like exclusive stuff. I haven't shown these yet, except for the
awesome.
Lions one.
Thank you.
So the lion piece, the statues, was actually just recognized in American Illustration. It was one of the best.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I was super happy. I had some pieces from Mariner in last year and this one now this year. So super honored to be a part of that. But these are both from Hill House. Like I said, it should be out later this year. Easton Press. It's a limited edition. They'll have signed signature plates that are signed and numbered by me with another illustration with another painting. And these, the one on the left, the statue, is all watercolor and gouache. And then the right is watercolor, gouache, and oil. The flowers that go across are painted in oil on a separate board, and then scanned and like arranged digitally. That's the extent of the incorporation of digital into my work, is really cleaning scans or doing layering stuff, like the most basic kind of layering, like in the lion statue piece there.
It's just again beautiful.
I'm excited for this book, and the project was super fun. Again, just proper paintings. All of these, there's I can't remember, eight pieces, I think.
Yeah, and again, it's just again, it's fine art to me. It's like I could go to a museum and I could see it so much better than some of the other stuff I see in a museum. Like I personally, we went to the Guggenheim. Me and my wife went to the Guggenheim a couple of months ago, and when you go to the Guggenheim, it's you're going down like so, and there was these paintings up, and it was just like, why? It's just like a pink frame.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like, to me, that's not art. That's just someone taking advantage of an opportunity. That's how I look at that. But then when I see this, it's like, this is the kind of stuff I want to see in an art museum. You know what I mean? So let's go into our next page and talk a little bit more about your sequential art. When it comes to sequential art, it's all about storytelling. And again, this is a good example of like we talked a little bit about colors and the use of colors. In particular, with this one, you are using those high reds with some pinks in there, but there's also storytelling that going on, as well as what I noticed is the use of where the lettering is put. So who made the conscious decision about the lettering and where it goes with these? Because it looks like that was very done specifically.
Yeah. This is Fever Dreams. So this is Michael and I, and Michael lettered, and we sort of composed the pages together again, just like Mariner. So this sequence in particular was very intentional. Sort of the cascade across in the first panel, covering up the main character's eyes, was intentional. There were a couple different compositions for that page, and we wanted to make sure that you could see the figure moving through the door, but at no point in this whole story do you see anyone's full face. And that's just, we wanted to make it more accessible. Like, it doesn't matter who the narrator is for this story. Once you see a face, then it looks like a specific person. So that was that. We wanted to obscure the face. You can see in the bottom tier, everyone's cut off at least the nose and up. Again, with the sort of the close up on the right hand side. And then like the beauty of making your own books is the beauty, and the difficulty is that it's all up to you. And so whatever serves the story best, you're able to implement, and you're able to like figure out how you want to move across the page, how you want like the letters to echo the art, or the lettering to echo the art, or how you want, even the coloring. I think in the page with the maze, there's certain words are red and certain words are yellow, sort of tie back into the composition of the whole spread. So David Mazzucchelli famously said something, I don't know specifically or like exactly the wording, but that it was always important to him that he have the last eyes and the last hands on the pages that he worked on. And even when he was working at Marvel and doing big 2 projects, he was the one who was in there like physically making sure that the book was or that the pages, if they weren't composed by him, then they were like approved by, like, everything looked the way that you wanted it to look. And again, that's like not a luxury that you have necessarily when you're working with bigger publishers, which is fine because there's deadlines. It's there's everyone at every stage is a professional and like puts out a good book. But when you're doing it all yourself, you really can sort of
You have the liberties. You're your own editor, which could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how good
Yeah,
you are with that, right?
yeah. Double-edged sword for sure.
It's definitely a double edged. So let's go into now some private work. One a piece that two pieces I saw that I immediately fell in love with were these
Oh,
two.
yeah.
Yeah, because as I've mentioned to you before, your work blends into the vertical style, right? It is so vertical, it's not even funny. Um, but the other piece with the chat with Bozeman, I want to go and talk a little bit about that one.
Mhm.
Um, when you did it, why you did it, and why you chose to make it look the way it does. So let's start with Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther.
The Chadwick Boseman Black Panther was a commission. Um, I think it was actually for Mariner or Punch for one of the people who pre-ordered.
Mhm.
Is they crowdfunded projects, so there's certain tiers,
Mhm.
and at a certain level, people got commissions. And so the collector specifically wanted the Chadwick Boseman. This was before he had passed, actually,
Mm.
but the movie was maybe had just come out, or had recently come out. So they wanted the Black Panther Chadwick Boseman piece, and it was obviously I love doing it. That piece, I'm pretty sure, got lost in the mail,
Mhm.
and I had to redo the whole thing.
Really?
Send it out again. Yeah, it was.
So someone could be out there with the original Black Panther drawing you did.
Yeah,
That
it.
would be
I can't remember the whole thing. Like it got lost in the mail, or the collector had moved, and the forwarding didn't work, and
Mhm.
whoever was at the new place, you
Open it
know,
up and said, "Oh, I'm keeping this."
yeah, man. I hope that they didn't just like, whatever, or just like throw it away,
Oh,
or
I doubt. I would doubt that if I see something like this and come in my mail, I'm like,
yeah.
"Oh, yeah, this
So
is." I would never say, "Oh, this is a hot piece of garbage."
yeah, well, yeah. So that one actually, I got to do it twice.
All right.
Uh,
Did you like the first one or the second one?
they're honestly, this is a cop out, but I like them both. They're both different. There's strengths and weaknesses to both. I actually think that the likeness on the second one may be a little stronger, but some of the anatomy is a little bit different, a little bit off, like on different parts of the body, if I remember right.
Mhm. And now let's go into the death piece because
That is, yeah, another private commission. The collector had is actually a pair. There's a Sandman and Death, or uh, Morpheus and Death companion pieces. Um, Ink, oil, watercolor for both of them, I believe. Um, and again, for this, I did want to obscure the face a little bit intentionally. Like if you've read the books,
Mhm.
the character of Death looks like whatever the characters in the book want them to look like, but there is a pretty specific, like, top hat, the ankh, the eye makeup
Mhm.
that I wanted to touch on. So it was fun, and like you said, the Vertigo books were a huge influence on me. The Sandman in particular, those the Dave McKean covers, and the story itself was sort of just like the art. Uh, Neil Gaiman's story in that series was like challenging what comic books were for me, and I read those when I was in college. They were in my college library,
Yeah.
so I was like in a headspace where I was like, comic books can be so much more than I thought that they could be. So yeah, the death and the Morpheus piece. I don't know if you have the other one. If I send
No,
it to you,
I wish I did. Now that you mentioned it, I got to see
I'll
it.
send it to you so you can see it.
Yeah,
But
definitely got to see it, man. I've been recently. I've been reading those books. I've been reading The Sandman.
yeah,
Also been looking a little bit at the. There you go. Truly immaculate artwork. There you go, Angelica.
thank you.
All right. Um, yeah, I've been reading those books in particular, and with the audio books, with
Oh,
the Sandman. And first of all, I love listening to the audiobook because they're capturing the characters as they are. If you ever get a chance to listen to
oh
the
yeah, no,
audiobook,
I've heard that they're good actually.
they're
From
really good. It's like Kat Dennings is the voice of Death, and it's so perfect.
Yeah.
To the point that whoever I don't know the lady's name who's gonna do it in the TV show,
Mhm.
in the Netflix show, which I hope is gonna happen because now Netflix looks like they're struggling in some way. Um, yeah, it's like Kat Dennings now. All I hear when I read Dev Force, I just hear Kat Dennings'
Yeah.
voice,
Yeah.
more than all the other characters because her voice is so specific, right? And Jeff is just one of those characters that when you first read Sandman, your mind thinks it's going to be one way, and it turns out to be a different way,
Mhm.
which is what made it such a good run. Especially my favorite Sandman stories are the ones that are like the self-contained stories that
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like they're the best ones because it's like Sandman goes into a bar in medieval times and he meets this guy and Death makes an agreement with Dream to say, okay, we're not gonna let this guy die, and every 100 years he has to. That is a great story, right?
It's such a great through line, that character.
Yeah, and what's best, what I love about it is that the character returns, right, for cameo scenes, right? Like, Death is about to go meet Lucifer, but he goes see his friend first. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And his friend's like, "You might not see me again." You know what I mean? That kind of stuff.
Good.
So
Yeah. Those are all back there.
yeah, man, it's it's
Great.
it's such a good read. Even now, it's such a good read, and
Yeah.
Neil Gaiman was so ahead of his time because
Yeah.
there's stuff in there. Again, what I'm reading now is relevant today in today's world, today's society. Um, so I'm looking forward to the TV show. I can't wait to see it. Um, there's certain parts that I'll be like, oh, how they gonna pull this one off? And things
Yeah.
like that. There's so many things. I was like, are they gonna even try to touch this subject? Um, so it's all good work, man. So let's go. Let's let's wrap things up. Um, John, it is a privilege to have you in my show.
Thank
I
you.
was so happy to have met you in Brooklyn. We hit it off almost immediately.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what other stuff you got working on lately?
So speaking with some people about new projects that I can't talk about now, but I'm actually on my desk that I've had to obscure. I'm doing some larger paintings. I've been working with a gallery in Chelsea, and I'm going to be showing again there over the summer. So the gallery is called Philippe Lebon.
Mhm.
It's I'll be posting about it on my social media, but I'll be showing there in the summer. It's a comic book sort of focused fine art gallery. So Philippe represents a lot of French and Italian artists. Myself, he does work with Jan Bertram, Paul Pope. He's got the show that's on currently is Nicolas de Crécy. I don't know if I said that right. My French is not great. But
Better
so
than
that's
mine.
yeah. I have French friends who I'm always like, did I say that right? And like, no. I'm like, okay. But so I'm working on some bigger pieces that'll be shown in the gallery there, and that's the big thing that I'm excited about now. And then as things are as signatures are signed and contracts are finalized, then I'll be able to announce new stuff too, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, I definitely will see you on a future Black Label book. I
Yeah,
guarantee it. I guarantee it. It's
yeah,
gonna happen. We're
yeah, man.
definitely gonna get that. So we have here Big Boss.
That's
We'll do it. We'll do it offline. What do you say?
no, no,
No, no, I'm just messing with you though.
trying to sneak peeks at this one here. I know him.
But it's always great. I can't wait. I will definitely go out to that show. So keep me posted on
Yeah,
that.
dude,
Let
yeah,
me know when
and
that show
for your
comes, and I'll go
viewers,
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for your viewers. Please, yeah, follow me and I'll announce it when dates are finalized and there'll be sneak peeks and stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll definitely share that information
Yeah, awesome.
so
Thank
people
you.
because again, it's one thing about seeing it on a screen. It's another thing when you actually see it live, when you
For
see it in
sure.
front of you, man. It's
I love
just
going to galleries and museums for exactly that. It's a completely different experience. Yeah.
All right, Jonathan. Where can people find you?
So yeah, I'm on Instagram at Jonathan Marks Art. My website, jonathanmarksart.com. I'm on Facebook, just my name, Jonathan Marks Barravecchia. And that's it. Those are all the socials. I'm trying to be better with Instagram. I don't have Twitter or anything like that. So Instagram and the website is the best place to find me. All the books I have available are up on my website, digital downloads and physical copies. And as soon as new stuff comes out, that's the first place where it goes.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being in the show. I'm going to put you back into the lobby and we'll talk a little bit offline. All right, man?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for having me, Izzy.
Thank you, Jonathan. There you have it. That was Jonathan Marks Barravecchia. Again, I still might have messed up the name, and I'm not good with names. I'm terrible with these. But thank you all for watching the show. And please, if you haven't done so already, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, and tell your friends about it. It helps out a lot so we get these artists out. Again, I want to be able to post not just those that we know, but those that we don't know, and establish new artists that are coming out and so forth, so that we could see the artwork. And again, just as a reminder, on Wednesday, Identity Crisis discussion. We're going to be talking with Rags Morales. It's going to be great, guys. So be on the lookout for that one. That's on Wednesday. And again, on Saturday's Free Comic Book Day. There's a lot of books coming out, some of which I'm really excited to read. So be on the lookout for those. In the meantime, all I want to say, guys, is thank you for being part of the IzzyVerse, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.